What's up, guys? Hi and welcome to yesterday's lower body day. Now, this was supposed to be uploaded yesterday evening. I clicked the upload button and made sure that it was going through. Then I went to bed, and when I woke up, the video was not up. So I'm going to remake this. It wasn't a good video anyway, and talk a bit about what I did yesterday. So, yesterday was a deadlift day, so that means that I max out on a deadlift variation before doing my regular lower body session. So I managed to hit a 140 kilo double overhand deadlift, which is a PR for me, and I decided to do double overhand deadlift simply because it's less difficult to recover from when you have a variation that taxes the grip more, and you're lifting less weight, therefore it taxes the overall system much less. So this is something I'm going to be working on, doing both double overhand and mixed grip deadlifts with both sumo and conventional deficits and blocks. So I'm going to be doing the whole plethora of techniques, and just off the top of my head, I'm going to have 3 times 3, at least, at the very minimum, 9 variations. I could be wrong, it could be more, but yeah, it's going to be a lot. I mean, we're talking about probably 4 different heights, so that's 4 times, conventional and sumo, so 4 times 2, that's 8. Then double overhand or not, that's times 2 again, so we've got 16 variations. It could be more, but at least, 16 variations that I can come up with off the top of my head. And that really means that you guys are going to see me maxing out every single week, but on a different thing every week. And once I feel ready to hit the bigger PRs, which is the double overhand deadlift, I'm going to take that one seriously. The conventional deadlift, of course, and actually the sumo deadlift as well, since I'm going to be working on those. When I hit PRs on those, you guys will notice, but I will use all the different heights, different grips, to bypass the biological law of accommodation, which basically states that if you do the same thing all the time, you're going to stagnate about 3 weeks in. Now, a lot of the time we bypass that simply by adding weight. For example, if you do 5 sets of 5 over 100 kilos, and then you do, after 3 weeks, you add 2.5 kilos, boom, you bypassed it. You're doing heavier weights. But what I really mean with this is when you max out on the same exercise all the time, and once you kind of have difficulties getting past that old PR, you're going to start breaking down and getting weaker. So what I want to do here instead is switch up the variation so that every time I max out, it's going to be new and fresh. A completely new, separate exercise and separate PR that requires separate muscles. This way, it's going to be a lot easier to recover from. And if you're interested, you could just look into West Side Barbell Conjugates. The West Side Barbell Conjugate method, that's not what I'm using, but I took the max effort part out of it. And what I'm doing differently is I'm maxing out 4 times per week as opposed to twice a week. However, I'm not maxing quite as hard. None of these were absolute maxes. What I'm doing really is I'm working on hitting a training max. So maybe 95% instead of absolute 100%. For example, if I don't feel the best. Moving on, I did squats today, 9, 8 and 8 reps with 100 kilos. And with the deadlifts, I did 9 reps, 8 reps, and 8 reps. So, as you can see here, my arms are still bending, my back is still bending, but I'm working on the arm bend. Really, I bend my arms when it gets difficult to grip the bar, but that is something I plan to work on a lot in the future. And this was probably the worst set here. At the end, I was like, fuck it, I need to bend my arms, otherwise I'm not going to be able to lift this. But it really comes down to the fact that if you have bent arms, you have worse mechanics, and I bend my arms because I have a bad grip, and because I'm kind of used to it. I have strong lats as well, so I feel a lot more comfortable with the bent arm position. But obviously it isn't the best, and if I have bent arms, it puts more pressure on my hamstrings and my glutes and my lower back. So all of my weaknesses, we don't want that. So I'll be working on straightening out my arms. As you can see here, I really tried to, but yeah, they're still bent. So that is something I will work on for sure. Another thing, my right wrist felt bad. Like, it doesn't really agree with the supinated position simply because it's injured. But the further I go along with this, it does feel better. And, in most cases when you push through pain, it just gets worse. But in my case right here, my wrist feels more mobile and stronger and better. So yeah, I do believe in this, and what I'm doing on every single set is I'm starting with that right hand with the underhand grip, meaning that the first reps, the rep that my nervous system will remember the most, I'm doing that with my right hand under, so that I'm getting used to that different position, since I always max with my left hand under. But yeah, sets of 8 pretty much with this. I'm going to work this up to 3 sets of 10. After that, I probably will have a deadlift PR. Since 3 sets of 8 was already difficult with 120, I believe that when I get to 3 sets of 10, that will probably be the best deadlift I've ever hit. I'm going to pull out a calculator here and see how heavy was this really. So my max is 170 kilograms, and I'm doing 120. Let's see here. So 120 divided by 170. So we're doing 70.5% of our max. However, I'm doing it after squatting, and after maxing on either a squat or a deadlift. Meaning, if I can hit 3 sets of 10 with this in a few weeks, I probably will have a maybe 175 kilo deadlift, at least 172.5. It will be a PR. Now, when I can build to maybe 125 for 3 sets of 10, or 130, that's when we're going to be starting to hit the real PRs, like 180, 190 kind of territory. Moving on, I'm also working on these Nordic hamstring curls. I'm cheating because they're way too heavy otherwise. And consequently, I actually have DOMS, delayed onset muscle soreness, in my hamstrings to quite a large degree. So these really help. I can feel them, they work. You're kind of half overloading on the way down. On the way up, you get a bit of help at the bottom, and then when your hands let go, you're at a higher position. So the strength curve is really nice. It isn't overly hard at the top or at the bottom, but the focus for sure is at that more extended position, which is, more commonly the angle that you would use when you're running or jumping or fighting, and the angle at which you're deadlifting at, and also the angle at which most people get injured who injure their hamstrings. I mean, if you look up track and field, people who are doing long jump, for example, they tear their hamstrings often. People who sprint tear their hamstrings, and a lot of that is preventable if you actually train the hamstrings directly with intent, and you do it for a long time, because you're building up those muscles and those tendons, which, if you have a stronger muscle with a stronger tendon as well, it's less likely to tear. It's really about having a kinetic chain that is balanced, and the longer I've been training, the more I realize that I probably should train all of these muscles that I've never trained directly. I mean, abs, I've never hit those directly, but there are obviously benefits to having a stronger core. So abs are on the menu, training my hip flexors with those hanging leg raises, hitting lower back, glutes, hamstrings directly here, as you can see. Also working on really hitting my calves properly. I've never done that before. Hitting my forearms and hitting my neck with direct work probably will give me the best physique I've ever had come next year. Obviously, this is a bulking year. I may look great at 95, but to be honest, I think I'm going to be a bit, not fat, but poofy, or whatever you want to call it. So, fluffy, I guess you should say. But bulking to 95 will be kind of a completely new territory for me, and I probably won't look the best. But after I cut next year in 2024, I'm going to reveal so much more muscle, not only in the regular chest and arms, but also in the calves, in the hamstrings and the glutes and the abductors, adductors, quads, building up that lower and upper back, building up the arms, building up the delts, building up the forearms, the abs, the neck, which, by the way, neck training, I'm going to start doing that as well on my upper body days to really balance out the body. I mean, I'm a fighter. At least I was, and I want to get into fighting again. Taekwondo, that is. So you can't be weak anywhere. And, a lot of guys in these kind of sports, they just train the, most associated muscles. And while they are light, they have a low BMI, they're very tall for their weight class, which is an advantage. They're also very frail, and you see a lot of injuries in these sports. So I'm going to be working a lot more to just not only strengthen the big lifts, the big three, but also the smaller muscles that maybe don't get as much love oftentimes. So that means training a bit more like a bodybuilder in some sense. Sticking to that, I decided to do calf raises today with a bit of weight added. I did 21.25, so I added a 1.25 kilo plate to the end and hit those 3 sets of 20 calf raises. As you can see here, my traps are getting bigger, not by the day, but close enough, by the month at least. So I'm really building up everything, and as you can see here, my quads are already good, but my hamstrings need a lot of work, so that's where I'm going to put the majority of my work in these coming 2-3 months. Really working on the Nordic hamstring curls, really working on the good mornings, and it could be a case where I work on good mornings and Nordics for this entire year. Those muscles are lagging behind so much that it may take an entire year to really balance myself out, and I'm prepared to do that. I do believe that my deadlift is lagging a bit more than my squat. I deadlift 170, I squat 140, and I think that I have a bit more potential in my deadlift and my squat, obviously, but deadlift-wise, I have a few glaring weaknesses that if I correct, I'll probably add the next 20 kilos to my deadlift easier than I'll add the next 20 kilos to my squat. And I need to add a lot of weight to both, so that's what I'm going to be doing, working on the weakest links. In addition to these calf raises, I've never really felt limited by calves in squats or deadlifts, but when it comes to jumping rope, skipping, running, and a few different other things, sometimes I do feel my calves, and I know that in jumping and footwork and other things, you need to have a strong calf tendon, you need to have strong calves. Also, I'm going to be bulking, so I'm going to be at the heaviest weight I've been in my life, and I still want to be able to move. And I see a lot of people not training calves, skipping calves, but imagine what happened if you bulked up and you skipped, quads, glutes, and hamstrings. I mean, you wouldn't be mobile at all. You would be top heavy and you wouldn't be able to move properly. So if you, place that same logic upon calf training, why wouldn't you want to have strong calves? I mean, calves are a major and very important muscle. I mean, they are like probably 2/3 of the lower part of the leg. So I'm really glad that I started training calves properly, and I'm going to take this very seriously, working it up to 60 plus kilos for this 3 sets of 20, and that will probably give me significantly bigger calves that I won't be ashamed of, calves that will look good, and calves that will perform. So that is really a recommendation I would make to all of you. Start training calves, and if you don't want to, just check my progress, and we'll see in the next 3 to 6 months if this really has an effect. People say that calves are genetic, and obviously I don't have shit calf genetics, but I'm just a regular guy, and hopefully I'm going to be able to show you guys that you can actually build a lot of muscle in your calves. Moving on to abs right here. These are a bit difficult, the upside down crunches or sit-ups, because there's a lot of swing associated, but the goal here really is to get my head, or at least my eyes, above hip level. So meaning that my back is not quite parallel to the ground, but almost, and also I'm bending my legs, which means that I'm actually working the rectus femoris. I'm working the hip flexor muscle that extends into the thigh. So this will make my thighs look better from a bodybuilding perspective, and mainly it will really give me that hip flexion strength which I need to kick high, which I need to perform well. What I did today is I didn't take off the moon boots. I actually went straight on to these hanging leg raises and did them quote-unquote weighted. So this is basically like doing it with ankle weights, and I really felt my abs. So I'll be working on these as well, taking those upside down crunches to a whole new level and doing 20 plus reps of these afterwards. So I have a lot of room to improve on the ab work as well. And that's really all I have to say on today. It was quite a long workout, but I'm glad you listened all the way through, and I'll see you guys today on my upper body day.